most people wake up and check their phones. Marcus Aurelius woke up and checked himself. While others rushed into the day, he paused to remind himself of everything he couldn't control. The insults, the delays, the betrayals. Not because he was pessimistic, but because he knew the mind breaks when it expects perfection. So he started his mornings not with hope, but with armor. Now stop and ask yourself, when was the last time you stepped into the day fully aware of what might go wrong without letting it control you? It's strange how fast our mind fills up before we even realize it. You haven't brushed your teeth yet, but your cortisol is already spiking. Notifications, regrets, unfinished arguments echoing from yesterday. And in the background, that quiet pressure to be on, alert, polite, productive. Mental clarity isn't just missing, it feels stolen. By noise, by expectation, by a world that doesn't care if you're centered, only that you're responsive. And yet, Marcus, a man ruling an empire under constant war, betrayal, and political pressure, managed to preserve a sanctuary within. How? He didn't meditate in gardens. He didn't escape to silence. He created it from within. This is not a video about being calm. It's about being clear. Because clarity is not a luxury. It's the difference between being used by life and living it. We're going to walk through 5 daily habits Marcus Aurelius practiced to keep his mind sharp, clean, and sovereign even while Rome burned around him. These habits aren't rituals. They're weapons. And whether you're a soldier, a single parent, a leader, or just someone trying to stay sane, they were made for you. Because in a world that sells distraction, nothing is more rebellious than inner stillness. But don't expect softness here. This is not about journaling in perfect light or pretending nothing hurts. Marcus knew suffering. He buried children, led armies, lost friends, watched his own health fail. And through it all, he came back to a simple truth. You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength. He didn't write meditations to teach others. He wrote it to survive himself. That's why these habits matter. You might be thinking, but I'm not a philosopher. I don't have time to sit and reflect like some ancient emperor. That's exactly why this video exists. These aren't habits that require candles or silence or a retreat from life. They're forged for chaos, designed for pressure. Marcus didn't write from a spa. He wrote in military camps, between wars, in the brief hours before duty would consume him again. So if he could carve mental clarity from within that furnace, then maybe you can too. Here's how we'll do it. We'll break down each habit, not just by what it is, but why it mattered, how it shows up today, and how you can claim it for yourself. And we'll go deeper than surface advice. Because Marcus didn't write one-liners. He wrote mirrors. You don't need to agree with everything he said, but I promise you this. By the end of these 5 habits, you'll never walk into a new day the same way again. You'll carry less noise. You'll speak with more precision. And most importantly, you'll start recognizing which thoughts are truly yours and which are just echoes you've been living with for too long. Coming up next, the first habit Marcus used every morning not to feel better, but to become unbreakable. It's not meditation, it's not motivation. It's a mental maneuver so radical, most people avoid it their whole lives. Let's begin. The day hasn't even started, and already you're behind. You open your eyes, and something's already pulling at you. An email, a vague sense of dread, the weight of expectations you didn't ask for. You scroll. Someone else is winning. Someone else is complaining. Someone else is telling you what should matter. But here's the question Marcus asked himself every morning. What parts of this day are not mine to control, and how will I respond to them? When you wake up in the morning, Marcus writes, tell yourself, Today I shall meet with interference, ingratitude, insolence, disloyalty, ill will, and selfishness. He wasn't being cynical. He was preparing. He called it as it was, and by doing so, reclaimed power over his emotional response. You see, most people step into the day hoping things will go well. Stoics do the opposite. They don't expect fairness, they prepare for chaos, and by doing so, they remain unshaken when it arrives. Marcus called this premeditatio malorum, the premeditation of evils, not as a way to become bitter, but as a way to become untouchable. Imagine this. You're driving to work. Traffic is thick. Someone cuts you off, no apology, just ego in motion. You feel it coming, that tightening in the chest, that snap in your jaw. You're about to react. But then you remember, this was already expected. It's not personal. It's just part of the chaos you preloaded into your mental forecast. And just like that, you exhale. You soften. You don't lose your peace to a stranger's noise. That's not passivity. That's Stoic sovereignty. Now pause for a moment. Ask yourself, what did you expect this morning? A day without delays? People who read your mind? A to-do list that clears itself? Be honest. Because most of our suffering isn't caused by what happens, but by the belief that it shouldn't have happened. This is why Marcus began his day not by planning his tasks, but by clearing his mind of false expectations. He knew that no matter how hard he worked, people would still betray him. Weather would still turn. Diseases would still come. His loved ones would still die. What he could control was how ready he was to face that truth. And that readiness? It starts with naming what's not in your hands. So here's your first habit. Before the world speaks to you, speak to yourself. Not with affirmations, but with clarity. Say it plainly. Today, someone will interrupt me. Someone may lie. I may feel anxious. I may be ignored. And that's okay. That's not mine to carry. You are not responsible for how others behave, only how you respond. This is not weakness. This is the beginning of mental discipline. Modern Stoic teachers try to package this as mindfulness, but it's sharper than that. Marcus didn't sit to observe his thoughts like clouds. He confronted them. He trained for hardship like a soldier sharpens his blade, not to hope for a peaceful day, but to remain peaceful when peace fails to arrive. That's a different kind of strength, the kind that can't be taken from you, because it wasn't given by the world. It was built by you. So tomorrow morning, before the noise creeps in, try this. Don't touch your phone. Don't scroll. Don't let the world hijack your mental sky. Instead, take 2 minutes and forecast the chaos. Name it. Own it. Let it pass through you before it arrives. You'll be amazed at how much calmer you are when nothing surprises you anymore. Because Marcus wasn't immune to pain. He just stopped letting pain catch him off guard. And that's the first habit of mental clarity. Pre-grieve the chaos, and you'll walk through fire without catching flame. It starts with something small. A comment, a glance, a pause that lasts half a second too long. And before you even realize it, you've built a story in your mind. They don't respect me. She meant to hurt me. He thinks I'm a failure. But what if none of that is true? Marcus Aurelius understood a timeless truth. If you are pained by external things, it is not they that disturb you, but your own judgment of them. It's not the event, it's your interpretation. Not the words, but the weight you place on them. And here's the harsh reality. Most of our suffering isn't caused by others. It's authored by our imagination. Think back to the last time someone said something that got under your skin. Maybe they didn't greet you. Maybe they didn't reply fast enough. Maybe their tone felt cold. And instantly, your mind jumped to conclusions. They're ignoring me. They're angry. They don't care. But Marcus would stop right there. He wouldn't ask, "Why are they like this?" He'd ask, "Why am I so quick to believe this story?" This isn't softness. It's psychological self-defense. Because if you don't learn to question your first judgment, you'll spend your life reacting to phantoms, ghosts made of fear, assumption, and insecurity. And those ghosts? They drain you. They push you to send that text you regret, to give the cold shoulder, to spiral into self-doubt, all for something that may have never even existed. Let's be clear. People can be cruel, but far more often they're distracted, tired, in their own storm. Not everything is an attack. Not every silence is a rejection. Marcus practiced what we now call cognitive distancing, a pause between stimulus and response. Not to suppress emotion, but to interrogate its origin. Is what I'm feeling truly justified? Do I know the full picture? Is there another, more generous interpretation? This was his inner habit. Not meditation, but moderation of meaning. Now imagine carrying this into your everyday life. You walk into a meeting and no one looks up. You feel invisible. But instead of reacting with coldness, you stop. Maybe they're focused. Maybe they didn't see me. Maybe this has nothing to do with me at all. You've just saved yourself an entire spiral. No brooding, no misreading, just clarity. You didn't let your first judgment dictate your entire emotional climate. That's Stoicism in motion. The real power of this habit isn't that it makes you nicer, it makes you more accurate. And accuracy is peace. Because when you see things clearly, you stop fighting shadows. You start making better decisions. You hold less resentment. You create fewer problems out of thin air. Marcus wasn't just being wise. He was being practical. In a world of politics, betrayal, and rumor, he couldn't afford to act on every impulse. Neither can you. So here's the second daily habit. When you feel the emotional surge, pause. Not to suppress it, but to ask, is this real or is this mine? Because the first judgment is almost always emotional, reactionary, defensive. The second, that's where reason lives. That's where truth begins. If you make this a habit even once a day, you'll start to notice something remarkable. Your life gets quieter, not because the world changed, but because your mind stopped distorting it. You'll become less reactive, less hurt, less controlled by tone, looks, pauses, and texts. And slowly you reclaim your power, not over others, but over the meaning you assign to the world around you. That's where real freedom lives. Because, as Marcus knew, it's not the sword that cuts deepest, it's the story we tell ourselves when we bleed. You're doing three things at once. Answering a message while listening to a podcast, while eating your lunch. You don't even taste the food. You finish the task, but nothing feels complete. Just motion, just noise. And yet, you keep going. As if speed equals progress. As if being busy means being alive. But Marcus Aurelius saw it differently. If you seek tranquility, do less. Or more accurately, do what's essential and do it fully. Modern life has made multitasking a badge of honor. We call it productivity. But what it really is fragmentation. You're not doing more. You're doing less of everything. Less depth, less presence, less clarity. And in the end, your mind feels like a browser with 27 tabs open, and not a single one is playing music. Marcus ruled an empire. He could have justified being in a constant rush, but instead, he trained his attention like a blade. He wrote, "Nowhere you can go is more peaceful, more free of interruptions than your own soul, especially if you have within you the right ideas." And that peace? It didn't come from retreats or escapes. It came from doing one thing at a time with presence. Imagine this. Marcus is writing in his tent. Aides rush in. News of war, a sick child, political unrest. He nods, but he doesn't flinch. He finishes the line he's writing. He grounds himself in now, before he enters next. Because hurrying doesn't save time. It steals clarity. You feel this every day, don't you? That anxious tick to check your phone mid-conversation. The split-second panic when your notifications pile up. The guilt of feeling unproductive when you do just one thing. But ask yourself, since when did peace become laziness? Since when did slowness become shameful? You weren't built to be frantic. You were built to be focused. And Marcus knew, the hurried mind can't be a wise one. This is not about doing less for the sake of minimalism. It's about reclaiming your presence from chaos. It's about saying, I'm not going to let the world set the pace for my nervous system. So here's the third habit. Choose one thing and give it your full attention. Even if just for 5 minutes. No distractions. No urgency. Just you and the task and your breath moving through it. Start with something simple. Drink your tea without your phone. Write an email with full intent. Listen, really. Listen to someone speak without waiting to reply. You'll notice your thoughts slow down, your muscles unclench, your decisions get sharper. Because clarity isn't about knowing more. It's about being here fully with what you already know. And here's the twist. Doing one thing thoroughly doesn't make you fall behind. It makes everything else more efficient. Because when your mind isn't fractured, you don't have to redo things. You don't have to fix mistakes made in haste. You don't have to apologize for reactions made in stress. You move cleaner. You think straighter. You lead better. And that's what Marcus embodied. Not productivity, but presence. In the chaos of empire, he still returned to this. Concentrate every minute on doing what's in front of you with precise and genuine seriousness. Not because he was slow, but because he was sovereign. And when your attention becomes intentional, your life stops being an accident. Because what you give your attention to is what your life becomes. You're in a conversation. Someone cuts you off, raises their voice, says something you know crosses the line. And before you even think, you've snapped back. Words fly, energy spikes. Suddenly, you're no longer speaking with them. You're defending yourself against them. It happens so fast. Too fast. And that's the problem. Marcus Aurelius lived in a world of betrayal, flattery, and manipulation. As emperor, people constantly tested him, pushed him, tried to provoke him into missteps. But he had a weapon they didn't expect. A pause. The best revenge, he wrote, is to be unlike him who performed the injury. In a world obsessed with clapbacks, Marcus chose restraint. Not because he was weak, but because he was in control. He understood something we often forget. Your reaction can become your regret, or it can be your reclaiming. And the difference is just a breath. Think about your own life. How many arguments could have been avoided if you had just paused for 3 seconds? How many emails shouldn't have been sent? How many apologies were only needed because your mouth moved faster than your mind? We like to think we're logical, but the truth is, we're reactive. The Stoic path is about breaking that reflex. This doesn't mean suppressing emotion. Marcus never suggested becoming a robot. It means mastering the space between stimulus and response, because that's where your power lives. Someone insults you. Pause. Is it true? No. Then why be offended? Someone disrespects you? Pause. Is their behavior worth your peace? Someone lies? Pause. Can you respond in truth, or must you mirror their poison? One of Marcus's strengths wasn't just in what he said, but in what he chose not to say. Imagine the restraint it takes as emperor to hold your tongue, when you could order silence with a single gesture. But he knew, the louder you are inside, the quieter you can be outside. Modern society rewards instant response. You're praised for speed, snark, for not letting things slide. But Stoicism asks a deeper question. Do you want to win, or do you want to stay free? Because every time you react without pause, you give the other person control over your state. You become a puppet, and they pull the strings. So here's the fourth habit. Create space between the hit and the response. Even a moment is enough. And in that moment, ask, what would the wisest version of me do right now? Because that version isn't gone. It's just often silenced by noise, by ego, by old wounds. But if you listen, it's still there, waiting. Practice this in small things. Someone interrupts you? Pause. Someone rolls their eyes? Pause. Someone accuses you unfairly? Pause. You'll start to notice. Some things don't need a reply. Some arguments end before they begin. And some provocations are just people in pain, flailing in your direction. This is how Marcus led, not with force, but with fortress. He didn't control others. He controlled the gate to his own reaction. That's not detachment. That's dignity. Because true power isn't saying the last word. It's knowing you didn't need to say anything at all. Some days, the world feels like it's shrinking. Your inbox, your to-do list. That one mistake you made last week that still haunts you at midnight. Everything zooms in, closer, tighter, louder, until all you can see is what's wrong, and all you can feel is small. But Marcus Aurelius had an antidote for this kind of suffocation. Look at the stars. Let your mind run alongside them. This wasn't poetic escapism. It was strategy, a deliberate habit of zooming out to reset perspective. Because Marcus understood, when you're trapped in a mental spiral, the solution isn't to think harder. It's to remember how vast the world truly is. He would remind himself, you are a soul carrying a corpse. Everything is change. All is flux. And while those words may sound bleak, they were liberating. Why? Because when you reconnect with the whole, your current problem loses its grip. Picture this. Marcus in his tent after battle. His troops are exhausted, his body in pain. Rome's future uncertain. He walks outside, looks up at the same stars we see today, and suddenly, everything quiets. He remembers, this moment, this stress, this injury, this decision is just one note in a symphony far beyond his comprehension. He is not the center, and that is a gift. Modern life traps us in the illusion of centrality. Like everything depends on us. Like our failures are permanent. Like our anxiety is the truth. But nature reminds us gently, humbly, that we're passing through. And when you remember you're a part of something greater, you stop trying to control everything smaller. That's not nihilism. That's freedom. This habit doesn't require a mountain hike or a week off-grid. It's simpler than that. Look out the window. Watch the clouds move. Feel the wind on your skin. Watch a tree sway and realize it doesn't rush, yet it grows. This is Stoicism too. Not in thought, but in orientation. Adapt yourself, Marcus wrote, to the rhythm of nature, for it is wiser than you. Sometimes, the most stoic thing you can do is stop thinking and start observing, because the mind, left alone, narrows. But the soul, when it sees the sky, expands. This is why Marcus repeated these phrases to himself, not as mantras, but as reminders. You will die. Everyone you love will die. And still, life continues. Stars still burn. Rivers still run. Nature is not in crisis, even when you are. In a world obsessed with urgency, Marcus chose to sync himself with eternity. He asked, "What is this moment compared to the turning of the universe?" Not to minimize pain, but to put it back in place. So here's the fifth habit. Step outside your head and into the universe. Return to the bigger picture, not to escape your life, but to remember where your life fits. Because when you reconnect with nature, that argument feels less permanent. That pressure loses its sting. That worry fades like a wave, dissolving back into the ocean. And in that space, you return to yourself. The self that is quiet, vast, unbreakable. Because Marcus didn't just study the stars. He used them as mirrors, as teachers, as proof that peace was never about getting more done, but about seeing more clearly. Let's go back to that moment. You wake up. Before your feet hit the ground, the world is already shouting. The messages, the missed calls, the headlines, the weight. Your mind isn't blank, it's hijacked. And yet, something feels different now. Because for the first time in a while, you know you don't have to let the day carry you. You can walk into it armored, clear, and present. Just like Marcus did. He didn't control the chaos. He didn't banish betrayal, or grief, or war. He lived through all of it. And still, every day, he chose discipline over distraction. He didn't do this with noise. He did it with 5 quiet habits. He began each day by remembering what was outside his control. He questioned his first judgments, not the world. He slowed down, doing one thing at a time with full presence. He paused before reacting, especially when it burned. And he looked up to the stars, to the bigger picture, to remember what truly matters. These weren't aesthetic choices. They were psychological survival. Because clarity, true clarity, is not an accident. It's a discipline. It's the discipline of protecting your inner space from the demands of a loud and careless world. So now the question isn't, do these habits sound wise? The question is, will you live them? Will you pause before responding? Will you let silence finish your thought before your ego does? Will you allow the stars to shrink your fear, your pride, your rush? Because clarity isn't passive. It's earned. Every time you resist the urge to react, every time you slow down when the world says, rush, every time you zoom out when your mind wants to collapse in, you are practicing something most people will never know. Peace on your own terms. Marcus Aurelius didn't write meditations to impress anyone. He wrote it to stay alive mentally, spiritually, emotionally. And in that writing, he left us a blueprint, not for how to be perfect, but for how to remain intact in a fractured world. So tomorrow morning, when the noise starts again, don't scroll. Breathe. Let the mind settle. Let your eyes find the sky. Let your thoughts soften. And then ask yourself, what do I control today? What meaning am I about to assign to this moment? What kind of person do I want to be, even if no one else sees it? Because that's what clarity is. Not a feeling, not a gift, but a steady, daily choice. A quiet resistance against becoming reactive. A return to who you are beneath the noise, beneath the speed, beneath the fear. And when you do that, you don't need more motivation. You don't need to prove anything. You just start living with a mind that is finally your own. If something in this video made you breathe a little deeper, hit subscribe and drop a comment with the habit you'll try first. Because this isn't just philosophy. It's a way back to yourself.